It's Hollie's Hotspurs back with another one. Chatting all things Tottenham, we're second to none. Special guests every time, if it's win, lose or draw. The passion is high like Harry Kane when he scores. Or when Lloris makes a world-class save. We got Højbjerg running the mid every game. Settle down, stick around, share your thoughts with the panel. And make sure you're subscribing to the channel. Coys.
Hello and welcome to another Hollie's Hotspurs live, and I must say this is the last one of the year, which sounds surreal to say considering we're only in November, but here we are. And with me tonight to obviously dissect that win, thank God, against Leeds at the weekend. I am joined by some fabulous guests. First of all, I'm joined once again by Formz. Formz, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Like I say, it's nice to have a little bit of a break, but also very strange.
Yeah, for sure. And I've got to say, I promise you, by the time we come back in the new year, I'll have a new podcast intro for you.
I rate that. I like it. That would be sick. That would be sound. Rain in the new year. I like it.
Exactly. And the new signings.
Oh yes, I like it. We need the ginger from Sweden in the song. I think that's what we need to add. But no, thank you, Formz, for joining me tonight. And also coming back on the show, Chris. I'm so happy for you to come back. I know you have such a busy schedule, so I do really appreciate you coming on.
No, thanks for having me. And I'm not at all surprised. We're 1 minute in and we're talking about transfers already. I love it.
I feel like everybody, we just need it. And I know that the first thing we're going to talk about is definitely replacing someone, but we'll get onto that in a minute. Also, we have Luke with us once again. Luke, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, good. Feel a bit under pressure today. You got some proper royalty on the show, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting into it. I always wonder how Formz feels listening to his own song on the intro.
Oh, mate, I love it. I'm living the dream.
I love that tune, by the way. Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
But no, thank you all for joining me tonight. Like we say, we've actually got a win to discuss tonight. Obviously, after losing midweek to Forest, it was quite nice to actually rein in some goals actually as well. Before we get started, I want to say a big thank you to everybody that's joining in now, that's tuning in. Thank you all. You're here nice and early. If you are rewatching this, please remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff, so you never miss an episode. But let's crack on with it. Obviously, like we've just mentioned, that we lost midweek to Forest, which was a bit annoying. So I was kind of hoping, Formz, that we were going to have a kick up the butt and go out there and do the business against Leeds. Luckily for us, we did manage to do it, but it wasn't all plain sailing, was it?
Never is with us, is it? It's one of them. I mean, I went to both of the games and it was just, I mean, Forest was diabolical. I've never sat there and thought, get me home any more than I have during that game. It was horrible. And then you kind of think everyone's sitting there before the game against Leeds on the weekend, and everyone sees Sonny on the big screen, and we're like, oh, okay, cool. It's the last game before the World Cup. We're gonna absolutely come out and smash it. What was it? Was we were all over the place, but it was. I think we were just lucky enough that Leeds are just as bad as us. That we were able to claw it back to make it 4-3. But yeah, I think I experienced every emotion under the sun this week with Tottenham.
I mean, they never, like you say, they never failed to give us heart attacks or high joys. But Chris, obviously, Formz has mentioned about Sonny. We're all happy seeing Sonny. One person I wasn't too pleased to see about, which has caused a lot of commotion at the moment, was obviously Emerson Royale starting once again. And I know you probably mentioned it lots in your shows, but how is that man still starting games?
Oh, wow. I tell you, I got told off the other day because there was a lot of hate with Emerson Royale, and it's just so frustrating. It really is. And, you know, all these reports about him spending £1 million to improve his game. I honestly don't know what to say on that point, because at least Matt Doherty looks like a right wing back, in my opinion. It is definitely an area where we need to improve 100%. I've said it on my channel hundreds and thousands of times, how we've started this season without an established right wing back. You know, knowing that Antonio Conte uses this system, they are so important to his system. Emerson Royale, I just don't see any improvements, and this is the big issue with him. If you see improvements week by week, the fans are going to get behind him. At Bournemouth, the fans were very angry because he took a shot, and I know it was joked about in the end, but the shot actually went over the crossbar, it went over the stand, it actually went into the car park, The fans were so unhappy, and every single time now that you see him on the team sheet, fans are very, very, very unhappy. But as I've said, putting a positive spin on it, and I know we're going to talk about transfers a lot during this show probably. If you put two decent wing backs into this Antonio Conte system, into this starting 11, this will transform the team. It will be completely different. And I think that these first half performances will be completely different as well. We need another January transfer window, like last January, where we're having two real quality players that will walk straight into the team, exactly like Bentancur and Kulusevski have, because they have made the real difference. And of course, that's why we're playing Champions League this season. But going back to your original question on Emerson, he definitely needs to be replaced. Improvements definitely still need to be made. But in my opinion, Antonio Conte has done a fantastic job in his first year in charge.
100%. And I like the fact you put a positive spin on it, because I go crazy every time I see Everson Royale's face. But Luke, are you kind of on the same kind of boat? Do you think maybe some of it kind of lands on Conte that he's picking him each week, or do you think it's more of a jab at those higher ups to be like, look, this is pretty much all I've got?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird, isn't it? Because like you can understand that being done, quite a few times, and then kind of moving on from it. But it's consistent, isn't it? And it's non-stop. It's Emerson Royale was out after getting a red card against Arsenal. Though they were the only games that realistically that he didn't start because he couldn't, right? And then as soon as the Champions League game came in midweek, he was back in the starting lineup again. Now I'm always like big fan of fans having their voices heard and all the rest of it. There becomes a point we start booing our own players, like that doesn't really sit with me that well, because at the end of the day, he still plays for Spurs, he's still a human being and all the rest of it. But there's no doubt that he has to be replaced and he has to be dropped from this side. We talked about it on my show at the weekend, and I know that everybody talks about this all of the time and it's boring now, but even that cameo that Jed Spence had against Nottingham Forest, just watching him drive out of defence. And at one point when he's driving out of defence, he has the space and the awareness to look around, see there's no one there, and then he kicks in another gear and continues to push on. He has that ball control, that ability, and then draws a foul at the end. So I really don't see and understand what Conte's problem is. And if it is a stab at the board, then when does it get to a point when it's detrimental to the team?
No, you make an interesting point. Like I say, it's almost like mind games, but not mind games. You're thinking to yourself, it's going to cost us at some point. And I think the kind of route you're going down is that exact point. But obviously the game starts. There's no question, Formz, that obviously we concede first off. I'm pretty sure that Dyer and Emerson were pretty much allergic to Somerville at this point.
Yeah. It's that whole right hand side. I was sitting with my friend Josh, and when the teams kind of lined up before the kickoff whistle, he went, that right side, our right side we're in trouble, and he wasn't wrong. I don't know what it is. Someone behind me was talking about ever since Dyer got back into the England squad, it's like he's stopped caring because he's achieved his goals again or whatever. I think that's a load of rubbish. I don't know what is wrong with us at the back. Are we missing Romero that much? Are we too heavily reliant on bang average players? I don't know what it is. I think I love Eric Dyer. I'm the first one to defend Eric Dyer. I've got an Eric Dyer shirt in my wardrobe, but he's been at the club for 8 years. I haven't seen the improvements that are needed in order to follow the trend of where we want this club to go. So I think it might be time for someone like Eric Dyer to go. It's thanks for your service. You've been incredibly loyal. We've been great back to you, but we need to try and bring in some world-class players. And unfortunately, that's not you, sir.
No, you're pretty to the point there. And it is strange. Obviously, I want to talk about the Romero point, Chris, because obviously it's been bubbling over on the timelines at the minute. The fact that when Romero isn't in the side, the likes of Dyer or whoever's in that back line seem to have a meltdown. And it's been about 4 or 5 weeks now where Eric Dyer's been playing hospital football at the back. And obviously there's a lot about Romero not being there, but being fit for his country. What do you kind of take on that? Do you think Dyer relies heavily on Romero? Do Tottenham rely heavily on Romero?
Big time. Eric Dyer is a completely different player when he hasn't got Romero there. hugely different in that Tottenham Hotspur starting 11 when Mero's not there. Very frustrating not to see him actually in the last few weeks. And then, of course, I know it riled a lot of fans seeing the pictures that Romero posted last night, checking in for international duty. It is frustrating because we saw the likes of Heung-min Son turn up at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium having just had surgery. He was sitting on the bench with the players. And, the timing of Romero posting those pictures, I thought was pretty poor on his part. Everyone will have their own opinions of whether he was fit or whether he could have been there, but he could have definitely been there, supporting the team as Sonny was. It's just disappointing, but I think that there is so much pressure. This is my personal opinion. I think there's so much pressure on the Argentina players to play international duty. And I think it's just one of those things about the Argentinian squad. They have so much pressure about playing international football. And it does seem in a lot of cases, Lo Celso is exactly the same. The international duty is a lot more important than playing club football. But you've got to think that it's Tottenham Hotspur paying their wages. So if I was part of the Tottenham hierarchy right now, I wouldn't be too happy.
No, and I think that's the thing. I think that's why it doesn't sit right with me, because at the end of the day, we employ him to be our player, and he's saying he's injured. I mean, Luke, how do you kind of feel? Because it is this thing about club versus country, sadly. It does come down to that. And me personally, I would choose, not if I was playing, but I would choose to watch country over club, which sounds madness considering Spurs haven't won a trophy in ages. But I've never seen England win a trophy either. So I'm kind of got a bit of leeway with that. But are you kind of on the sentiment that maybe we need to not overreact too much to Romero, obviously with everything that's going on with Argentina at the moment?
Yeah, I think first of all, we've got a lot bigger problems than, outing Romero from the squad because he's missed a couple of games because he wants to play in what would be his first World Cup. So, I kind of give that a little bit. Our defensive issues are a lot stronger than kind of finding a replacement for Romero because he wants to play international football. Quickly on Eric Dyer, though, Formz is right? Eric Dyer has been there for so long. He's played 3 separate positions at Spurs. And, the only position that he looks, mildly comfortable in for me is in the centre. As soon as he goes to the right-hand side, he looks completely lost because he has to do a lot more in his game. I believe if he had a really, really decent left-footed centre-back next to him and Christian Romero next to him, it would be a lot less for him to do. And, he would be a lot better. We do need to replace him. I'm not saying we don't, but I think our kind of issues are a lot bigger. But look, I think we need to give some of these players a break, right? Look what happened to James Maddison on Saturday as well. He could be out I don't know if it's been announced or not now, but, out of the World Cup because he played the last game. Some of these people, you've got to give them a little bit of break. At the same time, though, Spurs have got something to play for this season and we need all the points on the board we can get.
Like, it's very frustrating. I think the timing of it was just horrendous. If this was maybe like a couple of days after, it would have been fine. I think everybody wouldn't have. But I think the fact that it was just came out straight away and everyone's like, hang on a minute. But yeah, no, I mean, going back to obviously the goal, it was a frustrating goal to concede. But then it doesn't matter because straight away Kane swivels and puts the ball in the back of the net for him, doesn't he?
He does. It was one of them where it was such a stupid goal to concede. Like, so stupid because it happened. You blink and Somerville's put it past the near post, and it's like, where has that come from? And it's nuts because this season we have literally been that team where we need to concede, and that gives us the kick up the backside that we need, and it's so frustrating because that shouldn't be the case. And that shouldn't be the case for a top team. And you look at where we are in the table. I'll get back to the goal in a sec, but you look at where we are in the table, and you wouldn't think that a team who's currently sitting top 4 and in the last 16 of the Champions League are a team who only respond once they concede. Is silly. But then obviously you're right, we did respond. And whether or not the goal should have been allowed because of whatever fouls or whatever, they can shut up. We've been done over too many times this season. Yeah, cool, calm, collected. Harry Kane, trademark. Thank you very much, Ronald.
Business. No, but it's true. I think going back to obviously the whole situation with the goalkeeper, Chris, I think for me, it's Leeds' fault for not having a defender between our guy that was on, I can't remember who it was, but the person that was on the goalie. Then he wouldn't get shoved. I think that's the thing that really irritates me.
I think it was Lenglet, actually. Yeah, there's been lots of complaints. Jesse Marsh was told by the fourth official that he thought it was a foul, and then the foul wasn't given. So of course he was very upset about it. But Harry Kane does what Harry Kane does, and he's very near Jimmy Greaves' record now. And he's had a fantastic season. It's funny how people aren't really talking about Harry Kane, but he's behind Erling Haaland, getting the goals for Tottenham Hotspur, and he's done well. And I just want to go back on Luke's point about having a decent left-footed centre-back. Ben Davies on Saturday against Leeds, I thought was absolutely brilliant. Most interceptions, fantastic all-round game, and very, very underrated. I know a lot of Spurs fans get on Ben Davies's back, but Saturday was one of those solid performances that he gives constantly, but never really gets that recognition for it.
No, you made a great point. I mean, I'm probably someone that doesn't bash him, but gets annoyed sometimes at him. And I think it's just my mentality that I want someone better. But I think that's across the whole back line personally. But no, he did have a brilliant game. Obviously, Luke, it didn't go to plan again, because then we concede another silly goal. And I think, again, it was Dyer's fault for obviously not pushing up with the rest of the team after the corner was cleared.
Yeah, again, it's just, switching off at the wrong moments and conceding, silly goals. It's, I don't know. I'm a bit sick of the defending recently, but, it is one of those things that you come to expect. I get Chris's point on Ben Davies, and I think, you are right. Ben Davies has played a lot of good performances at that position for Spurs. But he's another one of those players for me that's been around for far too long. And if I look in the future and what I want and expect a Spurs team to achieve, and I see us in another Champions League final, let's say, do I see the name Ben Davies on the team sheet and think we'll be okay today? Not particularly, but
we're so far away from that though. I think that we got to a Champions League final. It was incredible, and it made me the happiest man on the planet. But since then, and sorry to interject, Luke, but since then it's been a case of that achievement has given the fans such a higher level of expectation than I think we deserve to have, and it put Tottenham in our minds a lot further along than they actually are. And I think that's what the fans, or it's where I see that us fans struggling with in the past couple of years, is the fact that we think we're so much further ahead than we are. And it's been that constant struggle with, well, why aren't we good enough? We got to a Champions League final. Well, why aren't we good? Well, why isn't this?
But then if we aren't pushing towards those, and striving towards those accolades and those matches, then what are we doing as a football club?
But we are. It's just never going to be an overnight thing. I think the signings of Kulusevski and Bentancur and the appointment of Antonio Conte were massive strides in taking it to where we need to be. It was just never going to happen over the course of a season or two. I think I struggling, and I'm genuinely usually so optimistic with Spurs. I'm struggling to see us win something this season. If it's going to be next season, we are going to have an incredible January and an incredible summer. And Conte's admitted that himself. And it's just, it's one of them. It's frustrating because it's this constant battle of, we should be further along than we are, but we shouldn't be. I think we're on a decent trajectory, in my opinion. But yeah, get rid of the deadwood. Anyway, I'll shut up for a sec.
No, I think you both make valid points in the sense that we know where we want to go. It's just taking longer than we want it to. And I think that kind of resonates with all fans in the sense that we've got these deadwoods still in our team and we try and defend them each week, but they're making silly mistakes like the Dyer one that sent Leeds 2-1 up. But obviously, going back to the game, we go into the half at 2-1 down. But then there was a bit of magic, Chris, from Ben Davies, which was how I wanted Emerson to strike the ball when he was set up on the plate.
Wow. Yeah. Lots of booing actually in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and I can't believe how much booing there has been since we've moved into that stadium. And when you think of the amount of managers we've had as well, Pochettino, Mourinho, Nuno Espirito Santo, now Conte, booing under all four managers there. But yeah, Emerson. Sorry, was the question about Emerson missing that chance?
Well, it was about Emerson missing the chance and the fact that Davies could manage to pull the trigger and Emerson couldn't.
Well, do you know, I'll big up Ben Davies again, because he is probably one of the most improved players in the last 12 months under Conte in that new position. But don't get me wrong. I think that there are lots of improvements still to make at Tottenham, and I think that the one thing that we're all getting a little bit frustrated at the moment is the lack of glory. Our last trophy, of course, was 2008. Going back to that Nottingham Forest game on Wednesday, I'm always most disappointed when Spurs go out of competitions, because every year, stupidly, call it what you like, I go in to these cup competitions thinking this is going to be our year. We're going to finally put a trophy in the cabinet. And when you think 1991, last time we won an FA Cup, 2008, last time we actually won a trophy, that is absolutely ridiculous stats. So I think if, all I want to see as a Spurs fan is that bus parading down the high road with the likes of Hugo Lloris, Son, Kane lifting a trophy, because it's so sad. We get bantered a lot of Tottenham fans, that we don't win trophies. These players have been at the club for many, many years, and they haven't got any winners' medals, no trophies in recent history at Spurs. It's, when you think of the players that we've had playing for us, Christian Eriksen, Alderweireld, Jan Vertonghen, Maurizio Pochettino, manager. You could go on and on and on about all these players, and they've all left without winning something. So it is about time, and I do have faith in Antonio Conte, and if he's fully backed, he is the man to take us forward. But going back to your original question, Emerson Royale's miss, absolutely terrible. And I know you guys alluded to it earlier about the booing of a player. Personally, for me, I've never ever booed any Spurs player. I don't agree with it, but I just think now that it is the time for Conte to be backed in the right way. And as I said earlier, if this January window can be anything similar to last January window, then we will be smiling again.
Fingers crossed. And I think that's kind of the thing that sits with me, is that I'm pinning on January, and the fact that I can sit here and be like the Leeds game, we came back from a losing position, Luke, and that's kind of happened for a lot of games this season, and that gives me a little bit of hope that maybe something magical might happen this season.
Yeah, well, one thing that in my lifetime that I can remember as a Spurs fan is the attitude and mentality sometimes of players at the club and the club as a whole. And I say that because what we've seen a lot this season is a lot more. It looks as if Antonio Conte believes the players believe. Okay, let's forget about Arsenal when he subbed everyone off and decided to just take the loss and keep it at that scoreline and move on. When we look at Chelsea, when we look at the other day, when we look at Bournemouth, Leeds, all of these games in which in previous times, when we're in a losing position so late on, we would just go on to lose the game. Never in a million years did I think this weekend, when we were 3-2 down, would we win 4-3. Never. Never did I have that belief. And that's
why
I did. I'm so optimistic.
And that's something that Antonio Conte has brought to the players and has brought in, which is incredibly special. And the board should realise that mentality and that way of performing, and continuing, because you never know what might happen. Could happen. And I just hope that from what I've heard, Chris probably is a lot more than I do. But when I heard Conte speak recently, and he said it was about quantity in the summer, it's about quality in January, and I just hope that the board and everybody else knows what quality means.
I hope so. I hope they've Googled it, honestly, because I'll be going nuts. But obviously, Davies managed to get the equaliser, but then Formz went behind once again after, I think it was Bentancur, but thought he was fouled, but when you watch replay, he wasn't. And for me, the thing that really irritates me at the moment, they don't play to the whistle. You're learnt as a kid to play to the whistle, and I think that's why that goal happened the way it did.
Yeah, it's one of them where I think some players just think they earn the right to be listened to no matter what time of the game, no matter what's going on. Like if you go, ref, you expect the game to stop and the ref to go, okay, no, cool, we'll just stop it. No, the opposition have just taken the ball from you. They're on the attack. Get up, chase them, make a tackle, then complain when you've got possession or the ball goes out. It's so annoying because it's such basic football. And they're all just being whiny little babies about it. And yeah, you could probably argue that that the World Cup is on everyone's mind. Like every time I watched Richarlison go down, who I think was a little bit non-existent against Leeds, but we'll give it to him because of the injury. Every time Richarlison went down, I winced. I was like, oh, that's his World Cup over, because he reacted as if his World Cup was over, but he's just looking for a reaction from the referee, and it's just get on with the job. Honestly, you make it so much more difficult than you have to. It's silly. All 3 goals, very, very silly, very, very Tottenham goals to concede. But it's like, what can you do? And I saw someone commented, and you pinned it before. It said the wins are more relief than joy at the moment, and it's so true. It's so true. It's nuts.
No, it is crazy. And I think that's the most annoying thing as well. Imagine if we actually had, as well as Romero at the back, we actually had some decent players. We wouldn't necessarily have this much stress. And I think that's the thing that really annoys me. And Chris, I don't want to take it away from Leeds, but that finish for that 3rd goal for them was pretty decent, to be fair, the way he struck it across. I don't know whether Lloris could have maybe made his position a little bit better, but I know that Lloris has had a lot of critical talkings recently.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I felt that he should have saved it. I felt very disappointed, actually, that Lloris's position, and if he was over a little bit, a couple of yards, then he would have saved that. And quite disappointing.
No, it was very annoying. Again, it goes back to maybe he's not confident because what he's got to put up with in front, and then that makes the back line not very confident. It was just, I think it's just a mess at the back, and the way we can see those goals, I think we can all pretty say on the same level that it's just annoying. It's easy defending that we just can't seem to do at the minute. But then, Luke, we have to praise our thanks to the Rolls Royce in the middle, Bentancur, because oh my days, he makes such a difference.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he? Because it's funny how 2 Juventus rejects can, suddenly do quite well at Tottenham, isn't it? It's not often, actually, that we sign players and they come to Spurs and they actually get better. A lot of the time we sign players and they get a hell of a lot worse. But no, I think he's absolutely phenomenal. One thing I've seen from him in recent weeks, Champions League especially, is his, he's one of those players who's doesn't care about, I say doesn't care. It doesn't look like he cares about, potential injury before the World Cup, or, playing at 80% just in case. I remember him, I think it was the Marseille game, when he was literally just sprinting everywhere and just running for every single ball. And his desire, his passion, his effort is undeniable. It's just incredible. I love him.
And it's the fact that he's got the quality as well of Formz to go with it, isn't it? The fact that, yes, he can do all the silky skills and this and that, but he's just there when you need him at the right time all the time.
Yeah, and I think the other player, you can see the other players, once you give Bentancur the ball, you're getting it back. Or if you've got the ball and you look up, where Bentancur is going to be, because he is literally everywhere. He's Mr. Reliable for Tottenham at the moment. Not just for the fans' entertainment, but for the players' confidence on the pitch as well, which is fantastic. And I think that, Højbjerg has been fantastic as well this season. He's had a couple of off games, but whatever, they can go in the bin because the good games have massively outshone that. So I think the 2 of them in the middle have really been our kind of pillars, which has been fantastic. And I'm just glad that we've got the likes of Kulusevski back, because I think that if Kulu didn't play yesterday, we would not have won that game. Bentancur was fantastic. He was all over the shop. He put the final equaliser and the winner away. But without Kulusevski, those goals don't happen.
Agreed. And I think that kind of brings me on to the next point, Chris, and how much we have missed him, because he offers so much creativity. We talk about all the time how we may need a creative midfielder, this, that, and the other. But when you've got Kulusevski on the pitch, it doesn't really matter, because he does everything on that side.
Massive. As I said earlier, Bentancur and Kulusevski transformed our season, and that's why we've got Champions League for this season. Absolutely unbelievable players. And like Luke said, rejects, Juventus rejects. I love that term, because Juventus, just give us some more. If they're rejects, then just give us some more, because we could do with it. But you could tell, like, when one of those players are out the team, they are really, really missed. Kulusevski was absolutely fantastic. Looked very threatening every single time he had the ball. As Formz said, the partnership of Højbjerg and Bentancur, probably our 2 standout players this season, in my opinion. They've been absolutely fantastic. And when you talk about players playing next to one another. Them two have got a real great partnership there. We spoke about Eric Dyer and Romero. In the centre. How on earth is Oliver Skipp and other players going to get in that team while those are playing in that kind of form, which is great to see. But as I keep saying, another January transfer window like last one with 2 quality players, 2 players that can walk straight into the team. That is exactly what we need.
100%. I preach that. I think we'd all preach that. It's just so much easier when you've got someone that comes into the side and knows exactly what they're doing rather than have to work them way up. But Luke, obviously sticking with Kulusevski, I think it's also really nice how I actually see a player on the wing take a player on, beat them, then cut the ball back with a perfect pass, especially for Bentancur just to tap it in.
Yeah, do you know what? I was slightly concerned. I watched it back a few times afterwards, and I was, looking back, you see Matt Doherty running in and Bentancur was just stood there waiting for the ball, and you just pray in your mind, just leave it alone and let Bentancur finish. But Kulusevski is an absolutely phenomenal player, because if you look at him in his size and stature, he's a big, tall, strong player. But what he also has is quick feet. He has pace. He hasn't got blistering pace, but he's got that quick turn of pace, like we saw with a quick. He did a little. The ball was played to Kane, and then he made the run round the back. And I remember listening to him, and he said, "Oh, I decided if it went 3-3, I would try and score." But then I saw Bentancur there and just thought, "Oh no, I'll stop it back." So, I just think he's absolutely incredible. I think that he is a really likable human being as well. And just to see I was really worried how he would come back from an injury and how long it would take him to get back up to speed. But when he came on against Liverpool, again, I thought he was phenomenal in the minutes that he played there. And then his first full 90 minutes, I thought he was in can't even talk now. Sensational. At the weekend.
Good, you've lost your trail of thought. No, I think it's kind of right. I think he is a gem with Bentancur as well. Like you say, if we can get something like that in January, then we are laughing, because I think that's what we really need. But Formz, I don't want to put a damper on it, but obviously with Bentancur getting that yellow card, it means we won't see him on Boxing Day, which I'm a little bit funny for. But again, we've got the World Cup in the middle, so maybe it won't be too much of a damage.
Is Boxing Day Brentford away?
Think so, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not an easy place to go, is it? But
12:30.
Say again?
Oh, yay.
12:30 kickoff.
Oh,
away the hangover for that.
That's great news, isn't it? No, look, I think it happens, but this is again, I know it's obviously before January, but this is why something like January is so important, because at the moment we have a very clear first team and a very clear A team and a very clear B team. And the B team, as we saw against the likes of Forest, just aren't up to scratch. We don't have replacements that we are confident with making if a player gets injured or if a player has to miss games because of cards or this, that, and the other. Having said that, Skipp knows what he's doing. I trust Ollie Skipp as long as he's playing a little bit further back. I don't really know why Conte's been pushing him a little bit further forward in recent times that he's been playing. But I trust Oliver Skipp. Basuma's a bit of a sticky one. I'm not a fan. I'll be completely honest. I see little glimpses of how he was for Brighton, but he's not doing it like he should be doing it, and I don't really know why. Losing Bentancur is not ideal, but at the same time, if he's replaced by someone like Skipp, or if we play Højbjerg, Skipp, and Bentancur as a mid three, not the end of the world. We've got other players around them to make up for it.
I don't know, it's quite interesting. Like some of the cameos he's played decently, and then other days he just hasn't been there. I mean, Chris, could it be with the dynamic we have in the middle that's causing maybe an upset for Basuma?
I think so, but under Antonio Conte, you know that Conte is always going to get the best out of players. We've seen him improve players in the last 12 months, no end. So I don't worry about Basuma. Yes, Basuma was probably one of the best midfielders in the Premier League playing for Brighton in the past couple of seasons. I probably expected a lot more from him this season. But it's all about what Antonio Conte wants and what he's demanding from these players. And I just don't think that it's clicked for him yet. But it certainly will, because he is a real quality midfielder.
Definitely. And I think it's someone good to have as well, because obviously, Luke, like we've spoken about, the people we have at the back, it's quite nice to have players in the middle that will definitely do a job.
Yeah, definitely. Basuma's a really interesting one, because I feel like against Man United, he could have been subbed after 25 minutes. I thought he was really, a lot of players were bad that night, but I felt like he was really, really below par. But then, against against Leeds, and then at Liverpool as well, at times, I felt that he's slowly, coming into this squad. And it has got to be difficult, He's coming in at times when, at the start of the season, it was Bentancur and Højbjerg in the middle. And then we had a front three. Once those injuries happened, we had to slot somebody else in, because the fans, of course, we all know best. We were calling for that 5 in midfield. 5 in midfield came. And then everyone was saying, why have we got 5 in midfield? Let's go back to having, 3 up top. So for him, it will come. And I know that, he will grow into it. And, whether Conte's comments about him, taking a little bit longer than others to learn the system are accurate, then you can kind of understand why. But I think, this comment exactly. I think, Basuma's getting better with every time he comes in.
I like Kev says, got a crap defence behind him, which is fair. It's warranted.
He's not wrong. He is not wrong. I think as a midfielder, it works both ways. As a defence, you're confident if you've got that defensive midfielder in front of you that will get you out of bad situations. As a midfielder, it's the same. If you're like, okay, if I mess up, the back line will have me. They don't. So there's that little bit more. But I get it. I do get it.
Yeah, no, that is fair. And like Roy says in the terms, it is pretty much the second half of the season, because we do have this massive gap going on. And Chris, I'm not going to lie to you, I think it's going to be very strange having this World Cup, but I also think it might be a slight blessing in disguise for us, maybe.
Absolutely, because the players not going to the World Cup, players like Jed Spence, they can now work with Antonio Conte. We know how he loves a pre-season. We know how he loves to get the best out of these players. So he will be working very hard at Hotspur way in the next 6-7 weeks. It feels very strange as a fan though, to have this mid-season break. It really does. I'm not a fan of it, although I feel personally that we need a bit of a break from Spurs right now. But after a week or two, I think we'll all be saying, when are Tottenham back? It will feel strange, with the World Cup. But what is it, 40 odd days until the Brentford game? So yeah, in a couple of weeks we'll be itching to get back. But wishing obviously England all of the very best in the World Cup, and hopefully we will do well. Let's see what happens.
Definitely. And I know we joked about it before, Chris. It's quite nice to have a little bit of a break. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm done pulling my hair out for a little while now over our defence. So I think it is a blessing for me.
when we return, if we play the first halves like we do the second halves, then we will be well up there.
It'll be fine.
With a couple of additions as well. It will be fantastic. So I keep saying, Spurs haven't got out of first gear yet this season, because I keep asking that question. Have you been wowed this season? I haven't. I haven't come away from any stadium, home or away, thinking I have seen a superb performance for 90 minutes. We haven't had that yet. So I think as Kulusevski put on Instagram the other day, the best is yet to come, and that's, I truly believe that.
I think I'm the same as well. I think, like you said, we haven't really kicked into the gears, especially in the first half. We always spend the last 20 minutes stressing to get a goal back, this, that, and the other. So I think the break will be nice, but like I said, be itching to get back for Boxing Day. But Luke, obviously, with that, it'd be good for the players that are staying at home. We just got to hope that the players that have got out, not necessarily put in bubble wrap, but don't come back injured.
Yeah, we just got to hope to God, haven't we? Because when our front, 3 players were injured bar Harry Kane, it was a very tough time for us. It was very tough for us to kind of generate any attacking presence on games. Having to play Perisic and Harry Kane together was not ideal. But yeah, I think it's brilliant for those players that aren't going. They may not be thinking it right now, because I hate to think what they're going to do. It's like at school, right? If you had to now cast all your minds back really far, right? If everyone else went on a trip and you couldn't go for whatever reason, and you had to stay behind at school, teachers wouldn't let you just watch movies all day, would they?
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like it was
Yeah.
it was full on work all day long. So that's exactly what it's going to be like at Spurs, I think. But I think it's going to be good for those, like as you said, Chris, like Jed Spence, who can hopefully really, really work on and hone their skills and kind of learn everything about this Antonio Conte system. And hopefully, according to Conte, we're saving energy. We're saving the energy, and then we're coming in the second half of the season after the World Cup when everyone else is tired. So let's see if that actually comes to fruition.
I hope so.
I was going to say, Hollie, I'm not sure who's going to be more shattered, the players coming back from the World Cup or the players at Hotspur Way having done 52 lengths of the pitch every day.
That is very true. I think we should put bets on it, to be fair. It'd be very close, I reckon. Going off of what Roy said, I mean, Roy, mate, come on, let's be a bit optimistic. Jesus.
Do you know what's mad though? On that, Roy, it's crazy to think that realistically, if you think of the proper front runners this tournament, we are more likely to have someone return with a World Cup than not. You think of either Argentina with Romero or Richarlison with Brazil. We could even bring it home. You just or if France go and do a job again, I think we're more likely than not to have another World Cup winner in our squad after the World Cup, which is nuts.
And we better win a trophy then for Spurs, because I can't be dealing with that stat anymore.
Formz, are you getting your Dyer shirt out for the World Cup?
Oh, of course. I'm going to LA next week, and I'm in the States when we play the States in the World Cup. So I'm bringing my Dyer shirt. I've just bought an England Kane shirt. I'm going to go and troll some American fans. It's going to be great fun.
We love it live. But no, we've got that to look forward to, so that should be fun. And then my favourite thing to do, because obviously we haven't got really a games to preview because it's ages and ages away. We don't know what's going to happen between now and then. But I think we should talk maybe transfers a little bit. Now, Chris, I'll come to you. We'll go with, obviously, I want to talk about the ins because I don't want to talk about the outs, because I think we can all name on our fingers who we want out. But so, Chris, for you, who would it be if you had an ideal January transfer window? Who would it be that you bring in?
Definitely a right wing back. I know there's been all these rumours about Antonio Conte's shopping list. He wants a centre back, a midfielder, a creative player, a right wing back. It's not rocket science here, is it? We need a right wing back. It is a priority. It must be a priority. Another centre back would be nice. I know a lot of people talk about creative players, a creative midfielder. Someone like James Maddison would be absolutely fantastic. Is it realistic? Probably not. I'm not so sure where a creative midfielder would fit into Antonio Conte's system, although a lot of us want it. But like Luke said earlier, a lot of fans wanted, the 3-5-2, and then it didn't work. But definitely a right wing back is an absolute must. A replacement for someone like Eric Dyer in the centre. Defensively, we definitely need improvements, because if you look at the midfield, like we've discussed, Højbjerg and Bentancur, I don't worry about them two whatsoever. The forward line is absolutely superb. We're always going to score goals, and where we have always struggled so far this season is defensively. So defensive reinforcements, absolute must for me.
A massive overhaul, because like we keep saying, we can score as many goals as we want, but if we've got a leaky defence, it doesn't matter. But Luke, are you kind of on the same kind of sentiment in case that we need a centre back and a right wing back, or could you possibly think of another position?
Yeah, so I think those two positions are essential. Let's all open up the Bastoni train all over again. And then let's read Twitter every 5 minutes while everyone says he's coming, he's not coming. Oh, his agent said this. Oh, he said that. It's just, I hate transfer windows just for that exact reason. And everyone claims to be the oracle of all things Tottenham Hotspur transfers as well. All of a sudden,
no, until it's a here we go, it's not happening.
Anyway, that's just my issues with transfers. But no, definitely, we 100% need a right wing back. The big issue for Spurs, though, with that is that we already have 3 at Spurs at the moment. And, we're definitely going to need to see some outs, I think, in that position. If those Juventus rumours are true, Juventus can have one of our rejects. That's absolutely fine for Royale. off your pop. I'll drive you down there myself. Nice little trip. But yeah, centre back would be ideal, I think, to either go alongside Romero and Dyer, or instead of Dyer. Yeah, but the other position I did hear, rumours about. Not that I know anything, but was that they were potentially looking at an understudy to Kulusevski, because when he was out, you can see how much of a miss that was. So that could be interesting to watch as well, maybe.
But it would be good. And I think, like you say, I think we're all under the impression that we need a centre-back and a right wing-back. But maybe, like you say, maybe fizzing in someone to not replace Kulusevski, but maybe give him a break now and again. Or if he does get injured, we've got a backup. But Formz, we've spoken about positions. Have you got maybe any names floating about? I think this is the hardest bit to actually think who you're going to bring in.
Especially in a January window, it's really hard to pull names out the hat. But I think it's January's difficult, especially for us, because if you cast your minds back to the Amazon documentary when Daniel Levy came out and said, look, the business would be great to do in January, but January is extremely difficult period to do business. And if you've got somebody who doesn't really enjoy doing business anyway, saying it's difficult to do business in a period, then how much progress are we actually going to make this window? And it's really telling that we are screaming out for a centre half and a right wing back as like first choices, but we are also screaming out for some backups, and I really hope that Kulusevski backup rumor is true, or if we go in for a struggle, or any form of class attacker that we can slot in and rotate, because we've got Champions League football to play. We are. Oh, we're going to say we're still in the FA Cup. We haven't played a game yet, thank God. We got the FA Cup. We got a big run of games in the league, and February is going to be a tough month for us as well, if I remember correctly, with our Premier League fixture list. So we just need reinforcements everywhere, but it's so difficult to pick and choose the priorities for January other than a right wing back. But you go back to the quote, I don't remember who says it, attack wins you games, defense wins you leagues, or defenses win you titles. Who was it that said that?
I don't know.
It came from somewhere. It came from somewhere. So yeah, I definitely. I mean, aren't we looking into Dumfries from Inter Milan?
That one annoys me though, Formz, because we should have looked at him before he signed for them.
Oh yeah, we should have done a lot of things.
Cost us about 3 or 4 times the amount of money. I think they bought him for around £13 million. It's now going to cost approximately 50. Is what I'm hearing. So it's another one of those stupid deals that should have been done. There's lots of players, isn't there? That Malinowski at Atalanta is another one that's heavily rumoured, but who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, Chris, have you got any names? I mean, I feel like your knowledge is a lot better than mine. So is there anybody that's floating about?
Do you know, I'm with Formz on this one. It's going to be very difficult in the January transfer window. And of course, when the names Kulusevski and Bentancur come up, a lot of people were very disappointed. And a lot of people actually said, who are these guys? Never heard of them.
I was one of them.
Exactly. This is what the January window is all about. Going to find the talent that perhaps isn't being used at some of these clubs. Yes, we all want household names. It would be fantastic to go out and spend, big money, because I keep saying on a regular basis, when was the last time you were wowed by a transfer? Because we're Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. As you said, Formz, earlier, we were in a Champions League final only 3 years ago. We should be going out spending big money on household names, signing all these star players. That's exactly what all of us want. But sometimes it's great to go to a club like Juventus and go and pick up 2 rejects who aren't getting regular game time. But one contract that I really want to see signed and spoken about is Antonio Conte's. And I must say that there is a slight doubt with me. When you heard him the other day in his press conference stating my contract ends on the 30th of June and we will talk to the club and we'll see what happens. I don't like that. I want to hear from the manager saying, I'm here, I'm taking us forward. You've seen what he's done at the club for the last 12 months. I believe if he's given another 12, 24, 36 months, he will give us success. He will give us a trophy that we're all desperately needing. But I really want to hear Antonio Conte come out and say, I'm at the club, because if he goes into the January window and the board want to back him and the board want to give him exactly what he wants and needs, i.e. a right wing back, a defender, or any other positions that we've spoken about, surely the club have got to know that he's here to stay for the long term. That does worry me a little bit.
He's so really. I'm sure. Sorry, I'm sure they do though. That's the thing. Conte doesn't. He's not the biggest fan of the way the English media spin things. So I'm doubtful that he doesn't.
It's a bit of a catch-22 though, Formz, because I really believe at this current time, I think that Antonio Conte doesn't know whether he's going to stay or not, because he will probably wait to see how much he's been backed in the January transfer window.
Yeah.
I think this is a huge window coming up for us.
Mm-hmm.
But the club know that. Sorry, Hollie.
That's all right.
The club know that though, because he's got a track record in, if you don't back me, I know where the door is. And we knew that. We knew exactly what we were letting ourselves in for when we appointed him. And I think that it's too late for us to turn around and go, oh well, we've got to the Champions League final. We don't need to make any signings. And it's too late to say, oh, well, we signed Kulusevski and Bentancur and they've been great. Why do we need to make more signings? We're past that. And I think the club know that. And I think Conte's not the type of manager to sit there quietly. And he's definitely given them everything he can for them to then turn around and go, okay, well, the ball's in our court now. We either back you and keep you, or we do exactly what we've done in the past and let history repeat itself. And it's a really scary time. And I think we'll be a lot more confident come January the 31st.
Definitely. I think that's the kind of thing with me as well. The fact that he's being kind of cryptic in a sense that he's like, I'm waiting for you to actually give me what I want. I think that's the problem I'm getting from it. I think the club know, but we've been here so many times when we all know as a fan base, the club all know as themselves, but they don't go, yeah, we'll go do that. They don't take the risk. And I think that's my big issue with them at the moment, in terms of, yes, we've got Conte, yes, we've got the man that can do it, but we're still sat here worrying whether our club are going to do it or not. I think that's the problem.
The thing is though, Hollie, you cannot go Maurizio Pochettino, Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte and not win anything. It cannot happen.
But you know what that stinks of, don't you? It stinks of Daniel Levy going back to Maurizio Pochettino in the summer. Like I have had this feeling for quite some time, and I I hope it doesn't happen. But I agree with you, Chris, in that catch-22. Right, Conte wants backing. The club want confidence that he's going to that he's going to be there for the long term to back him. So it's like, who backs down first on that scenario? Does Conte say, "Okay, I trust you, Daniel," because none of us would do that. Who would say, "Oh yeah, I trust you, Daniel Levy. You're going to do what you say you're going to do." Like he's going to want that promise, but the club are going to want the confidence that he's going to stay. So yeah,
I think the one difference in this instance is Fabio Paratici. Yeah. I think he's definitely if we did not have him, I mean, we wouldn't have Conte anyway. But if he wasn't anywhere near the club, then it would be a complete shit show. But I think that might just be the glue.
The thing is, Luke, I know a lot of fans say, "Oh, Maurizio Pochettino will come back." What's the first question you would ask being Poch? Am I being backed? How many players can I buy? Yeah. What can I do? How can I take this club forward, etc., etc.? You've got to remember that we went many transfer windows without signing a player. 518 days it was without signing a single player under Pochettino, and he took us to a Champions League final. That will probably never, ever be repeated ever again in history. But, even he said at the time, you've got this mansion, you need the furniture to put in it. Yeah. And I just feel that, someone like Conte, yes, we had Jose Mourinho, a serial winner, been there, done it, got the T-shirt, won every trophy in the land. But Conte is a current, he's a fantastic world-class manager. We cannot let this opportunity go without this manager taking us to a trophy.
It has to be. It just has to be. January has to come. We need to get some gems or some household names, and then life will be sweet, because otherwise I'm going to be stressing for another season. And I can't go one trophy in my life. I'll be 90 before we win something otherwise. But yeah, it'll be an interesting January, to say the least. And then we will kick off the second half of the season, which I must say, I think I'm looking forward to, because I think them lot down the road will hopefully fall off the face of the earth, and that'll be fabulous.
Forgot about them.
You
And I
didn't
thought I'd
need
leave
to
it to
mention
last
Hollie,
bit.
Hollie, I look forward to the 715,000th Hollie's Hotspurs when you're 90, and then we're all back.
Oh, we there with the stick with Zimmer frame. Yeah, I think the second half of the season will be a big push for us, especially if we start games in the first half and not the second half. That'd be fabulous. But no, it's been a great chat tonight, obviously, to talk about the game, and obviously looking forward to things happening in January. So before we go, I want to do our little round robin so we can all say goodbye and where we can find us. So Formz, thank you again for joining me tonight. Where can everybody find you doing your thing?
Oh, thank you very much for having me. My name's Formz on everything. If you want to go and listen to some music, Formz. If you want to go and watch some videos, it's Formz. That's me. Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
No, thank you, Formz. Like I say, I'm holding you to a new intro song in the new year, because I want the ginger Swede on it. So yeah, that's my little note. But no, thank you. Also, Chris, thank you for joining me tonight. I know you're super busy, but I really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
No, it's been great. Nice talking to all three of you, and everyone can find me at Chris Cowlin on Twitter or Instagram, or my YouTube channel, Tottenham fan Chris Cowlin. So thanks for having me on.
Love it. Thank you. And Luke as well, I'm ready for your outro speech. Where can everybody find you doing your thing as well, Luke? Is he froze?
Well, he looks like he's frozen.
Oh, man.
No,
he's
see,
froze.
I can see you all.
Oh, there we go.
I'm back. So literally, as you were saying that, Hollie, because every time I come on here, I mess up my little thing and I never actually promote anything and just talk nonsense. And then literally, as you started speaking, everybody went into spinning wheels. And I thought,
oh, brilliant.
No, so yeah. Look, if you want to follow me, it's at Park Lane Podcast on YouTube, Park Lane Podcast on all podcast platforms, Spotify and all the rest of it. We do a show every Saturday morning, 11 a.m. On YouTube. So if you're interested in listening, tune in. If you're not, don't bother.
Yeah.
I love it, Luke, when you say that last line. It gets me every time. So make sure everybody that's watching, you go and check out these guys. I do really appreciate you all tuning in tonight as well. I know some of you have been chatting all the way through, and like most things, I'm not very good at pulling them up. But thank you for avidly persisting to watch and comment. And I do really, I thought Formz froze. No, he's still here. But no, thank you very much to everybody that's watched. And like I say, this is the last Hollie Hotspurs live of the year, but come Wednesday I'll be joining my mate Albert, who sadly is a fan of those down the road, so I'm sure he'll wind me up when we're talking about England. So make sure you tune into that, and yeah, until next time, obviously till New Year, come on you Spurs.